If you grew up in America any time between, say, the release of Clueless and the rise of TikTok, so roughly 1995 to 2015, I can almost guarantee you have a very specific sense memory etched into your brain.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a song, and it's not a movie quote. It's a color, a bright, unapologetic, crinkly canary yellow.
The bag. You're talking about the bag.
I am talking about the yellow plastic bag from Forever 21. At the bottom of that bag, there was always that verse, John 3.16, printed in tiny letters. But inside the bag, absolute chaos.
Total chaos.
A sequined skirt for $12, a graphic tee that made no sense, maybe a pair of sunglasses that would, break in 3 days.
It's ubiquitous. For a solid 2 decades, that yellow bag was a status symbol. Not of wealth, obviously, but of participation.
Yes.
If you were walking through a mall, a high school hallway, or a college campus with that bag, you were signaling that you were part of the fast fashion revolution.
Yeah.
You had the trend, and you got it for the price of a sandwich.
Exactly. It was the thrill of the hunt. You'd walk into this massive, thumping store music, blasting at club levels clothes piled on tables like a rummage sale, and you'd dig. But here is the reality check, and it is a harsh one. As of May 2025, that physical experience is gone, completely erased from the United States landscape.
It really is the end of an era. And I want to be clear about what gone means here. We aren't just talking about a downsizing.
No.
We mean the physical footprint in the U.S. has been wiped clean. We're talking about a company that once had global sales peaking at $4.4 billion.
$4.4 billion.
A company that seemed absolutely invincible, like the cockroach of the retail world. It could survive anything.
Until it couldn't. And that is what we're unpacking today. This isn't just a story about a store closing. If you're listening to this and thinking, who cares, it's cheap clothes, you are missing the bigger picture.
You really are.
This is a deep dive into a cultural phenomenon. How does a company start with $11,000 in savings, literally the price of a used Honda Civic, grow into a global empire, and then crash and burn into bankruptcy not once, but twice in 6 years?
It's a trajectory that perfectly maps the rise and fall of the fast fashion model itself. We have a massive stack of source material to get through today.
We do!
We're looking at the complete timeline from the founding in Highland Park, Los Angeles in 1984, all the way to the final liquidation sales in March and April of 2025, and finally, its strange, zombie-like resurrection online later that year.
We're going to get into the business models, the lawsuits. Oh man, the lawsuits are absolutely wild. From Ariana Grande to Adobe Photoshop and the supply chain secrets.
Right.
But I think, to really understand how big this collapse is, we have to go back to the beginning, because before it was a global giant eating up mall space, it was just a tiny, humble shop called Fashion 21.
That's right. And the story starts with the classic American dream narrative, but with a level of hustle that is honestly exhausting just to read about.
It really is.
The founders, Do-won Chang and Jin-Suk Chang, were immigrants from South Korea. They arrived in Los Angeles in 1981, and they didn't exactly land with a golden parachute.
No, I read about Do-won Chang's early years. He was working 3 jobs at the same time. He was a janitor, he pumped gas, and he worked in a coffee shop. That is the definition of grinding.
It is. And while he was pumping gas, he noticed something. He noticed that the people driving the nicest cars, the Mercedes, the BMWs, were all in the garment business.
Ah, there it is.
That was his light bulb moment. Fashion wasn't just about clothes, it was about upward mobility. So they scraped together $11,000 in savings.
Which, even in 1984 dollars, is not a lot of capital to start a retail empire.
Yeah.
Adjusted for inflation, that's maybe $30,000 today.
About that, yeah.
You can burn through that in a month of rent in LA now.
Easily. But they made it work. On April 16th, 1984, they opened that first store. It was at 5637 North Figueroa Street in the Highland Park district. And it wasn't a massive flagship, it was 900 square feet. To give you a visual, that is smaller than many 2-bedroom apartments.
And originally, they weren't trying to take over the world, right? Their focus was much smaller.
Correct. The initial business model was actually quite localized. They were sourcing designs that were popular in South Korea and bringing them to the Korean-American community in Los Angeles.
So a niche audience.
A total niche play. They were buying merchandise at wholesale closeouts, getting the best deals they could find, and selling it at a slight markup.
But clearly, the appeal went way beyond just that one community, because the numbers for that first year are staggering. I had to double-check this when I saw it in the notes.
They are unbelievable. And that first year of operation, that tiny 900-square-foot store pulled in $700,000 in sales.
$700,000 from an $11,000 investment. That is the moment where you go, okay, we're on to something here.
Absolutely.
That's almost $800 per square foot. That is Apple Store levels of density, but with polyester shirts.
Precisely. That was the aha moment. They realized this concept had mass appeal. It wasn't just Korean Americans who wanted cool, affordable clothes.
Right.
Everyone did. So they changed the name from Fashion 21 to Forever 21.
Ah, the rebrand.
And this is where the strategy shifted from local community store to fast fashion disruptor. They began opening new stores at a breakneck pace on average. A new store every 6 months.
Every 6 months. That is incredibly aggressive for a new business, especially one that was family-owned and not swimming in venture capital money.
It was all about cash flow. They were reinvesting everything.
Oh.
And unlike a lot of their competitors at the time, think about the mall in the 90s. You had Wet Seal, Contempo Casuals, 579.
Oh, yeah, I remember those.
Those stores were strictly for teenagers. If you were over 22, you felt weird walking in there. The Changs did something different. They targeted the whole family.
Right, they wanted everybody.
They wanted the mom, the dad, and the kids. And to do that, they needed space.
Right, because I remember Forever 21's being huge, like confusingly huge. You could get lost in there. There were different levels, weird annexes.
That became their signature. The average store size eventually grew to 38,000 square feet. But in the early 2000s, they made a move that really signaled their ambition. In 2005, they acquired a chain called Gadzooks.
Oh, wow. Gadzooks. That is a blast from the past. I definitely bought a puka shell necklace there in 2001.
We all did. But by 2005, Gadzooks was bankrupt. Forever 21 bought the chain for $33 million. Now here's the key business insight. They didn't buy it because they loved the name Gadzooks or because they wanted their inventory.
They wanted the real estate.
They bought it for the leases, exactly. By buying Gadzooks out of bankruptcy, they instantly acquired 150 locations in malls across America.
So it was a shortcut to ubiquity.
A massive one. By 2006, retail analysts estimated their sales had jumped from $640 million to $1 billion. They essentially bought their way into every major mall in the country overnight.
So they're taking over the physical space. They're replacing these dying brands. And they started building these massive showcase stores. I read about the one in Pasadena, 40,000 square feet.
Yes. Opened in 2006, it had everything. Accessories, lingerie, men's, children's. They were positioning themselves as a department store for the young and trendy.
A department store, that's a good way to put it.
And you have to remember the context. 2008 comes around, the Great Recession hits. Most retailers are panicking, people are stopping spending. But Forever 21.
They thrived.
The Chicago Tribune reported they were going gangbusters.
Gangbusters. You don't hear that word enough in business reporting anymore, but it makes sense, right? In a recession, people still want to shop, but they can't afford Abercrombie or Banana Republic anymore, so they trade down to Forever 21.
Exactly. The recession actually fueled their growth. They were the cheap alternative. So we enter what you call the golden era. This is roughly 2010 to 2015. Forever 21 is everywhere. The music is loud, the clothes are cheap, and the sales are astronomical.
And this is when they hit that peak number, right?
By 2015, global sales hit that record high of $4.4 billion. And even a few years before that, in 2011, their assets were $1.4 billion with $124 million in profit.
And amazingly, the family kept control this whole time, no IPO.
No IPO. The Changs didn't take the company public. It was a very tightly controlled family operation. Their daughters, Linda and Esther, were in executive roles. Linda ran marketing, Esther was in merchandising.
So it was a tight-knit operation at the top, despite being a global behemoth with hundreds of stores.
A very private company, which made it hard for analysts to see inside, but the growth was undeniable.
Okay, so they have the real estate, they have the family control. But let's talk about the actual product, because the defining characteristic of Forever 21 wasn't quality. Let's be honest, the quality was suspect.
Suspect is a kind word. The defining characteristic was speed. I remember reading that they could get a trend from the runway to the rack faster than anyone else. How did they actually pull that off? That speed was their secret weapon, but it was also a logistical marvel. The New York Times reported that while a traditional designer might take 6 months to get a collection from a runway show to a retail floor, Forever 21 could do it in 6 weeks.
6 weeks?
Sometimes less.
That is lightning fast. How does that physically happen? You have to design it, source the fabric, cut it, sew it, ship it.
Well, this is where their made in LA roots actually helped them in the beginning. Unlike competitors who did everything in China, Forever 21 kept a lot of manufacturing local in Los Angeles for a long time.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't realize that.
This allowed them to spot a trend, say, the specific dress. Paris Hilton wore manufacture a few thousand units in downtown LA and trucked them to stores within days.
That's the test and repeat model, right?
Exactly. They wouldn't commit to 1,000,000 units. They'd make a small batch, throw it to the store, see if it sold. If it flew off the shelves, they'd ramp up production immediately.
So they had a very agile supply chain.
Incredibly agile. It required a very high inventory turnover. They were completely changing out their merchandise every 6 to 8 weeks. If you saw something you liked, you had to buy it then and there because it wouldn't be there next time.
Fear of missing out, weaponized as a business model. But this brings us to the controversy. Because you can't move that fast without cutting some corners.
A few corners, yes.
And one of the biggest questions people had was, who is designing all this stuff? Because if you're releasing thousands of new styles a month, you must have an army of designers.
You would think. But the answer, controversially, was pretty much nobody. Or at least not designers in the traditional sense.
What does that even mean?
In 2007, the company actually admitted this publicly. They stated that they employed no designers. Instead, they used what they called very savvy designer merchants.
Savvy designer merchants. That sounds like corporate speak for professional copycats.
Well, that is certainly how the fashion industry interpreted it. The company claimed that they worked with many suppliers and didn't always know where the ideas originated.
Come on.
But the implication was clear. They weren't sitting around sketching original art. They were spotting trends, often on high-fashion runways or on competitors' racks, and replicating them for the mass market immediately.
But wait, isn't that illegal? I mean, if I write a book, you can't just change the character names and sell it. Why could they do that with clothes?
This is a crucial distinction in U.S. copyright law. In America, you generally cannot copyright the utility of an article of clothing.
The utility?
You can't copyright the cut of a dress or the shape of a sleeve because clothes are considered functional items. You need sleeves to cover your arms. You need a hole for your head. The law sees that as function, not art.
Okay, so the shape is fair game.
Right. However, you can copyright a 2D graphic print, a logo, or a specific fabric pattern. So Forever 21 operated in the legal gray area.
They'd walk the line.
They would copy the silhouette of a Diane von Furstenberg dress perfectly, but maybe change the print just enough to avoid a lawsuit. Or sometimes they wouldn't change it enough.
And that leads us directly into the dark side of fast fashion. Because if you're replicating designs that fast, you're going to step on some toes. And by step on toes, I mean get sued. A lot.
The legal battles were constant. It was almost a line item in their budget. By October 2007, they were facing over 20 lawsuits related to copyright infringement.
20. Just in 1 year.
And the list of accusers is like a who's who of fashion. Diane von Furstenberg, Anna Sui, Gwen Stefani's Harajuku Lovers brand.
I remember the Gwen Stefani one Harajuku Lovers. She had those very specific anime-style graphics.
Yes, and those are 2D graphics, so they are protected. But the Travada case was the most interesting one to me. Travada was a smaller, cool, contemporary label, and they claimed Forever 21 copied their designs button for button.
And they took them to court.
They actually took Forever 21 to a jury trial.
Which almost never happens, right?
Yeah.
Usually these things settle out of court because the big company just pays the little company to go away.
Exactly. But Travada wanted to make a point. It resulted in a mistrial initially, but they settled before a retrial. But the evidence they showed was damning emails, side-by-side comparisons, where even the stitching quirks were identical.
Whoa.
It showed that designers were getting fed up.
And it wasn't just clothing designs. In 2019, Ariana Grande sued them for $10 million. And this wasn't about a song, it was about her face.
This is the right of publicity issue.
Yeah.
Ariana Grande accused them of using a look-alike model dressed exactly like her in the Seven Rings music video to promote their clothes.
Hey, let's unpack right of publicity. Is that like copyright?
It's different. Copyright protects what you create. Right of publicity protects who you are. Your name, your image, your likeness. It's why you can't just put Taylor Swift's face on a billboard to sell tires without her permission.
Got it.
Ariana argued that by hiring a model who looked like her, dressed like her, and posed like her, Forever 21 was tricking consumers into thinking she endorsed the brand.
That is bold. It's one thing to copy a dress. It's another to copy a pop star's entire existence for an ad campaign. But there was another lawsuit that I found absolutely mind-boggling. And it wasn't about clothes or pop stars. It was about software.
Oh, the Adobe case. This one peels back the curtain on their internal operations in a way that is frankly shocking for a company of their size.
Tell me about this.
In 2015, Adobe, Autodesk, and Corel filed a joint lawsuit. They accused Forever 21 of using pirated versions of Photoshop, AutoCAD, and Paint Shop Pro.
Wait, pause on that. We are talking about a company making $4 billion in revenue, and they were allegedly using cracked versions of Photoshop, like a broke college student trying to make a meme.
That was the allegation. They claimed they found instances of Forever 21 using serial numbers that had been key-generated illegally. Adobe claimed they were bullying them over licensing fees, but the software companies said, no, you're using unlicensed copies to design your store layouts and retouch your photos.
That just screams frugality gone wrong. It paints a picture of a company that was trying to cut costs at absolutely every level, even when it made no sense.
And when you say every level, sadly, that includes the people working on the floor and in the factories.
Right. We have to talk about the labor issues, because this is a huge dark cloud over the Forever 21 story.
It really is.
Yeah, this is where the American dream narrative gets really complicated, because while the Changs were succeeding, the people making the clothes were struggling.
In 2001, there was a landmark lawsuit filed by the Asian Pacific American Legal Center. They represented 19 garment workers in Los Angeles who claimed they were being paid less than minimum wage and working in sweatshop-like conditions.
Sweatshop conditions in L.A.
Yes. We're talking about people sewing Forever 21 shirts for pennies per piece, ending up with wages far below the legal limit.
And Forever 21's defense was basically, it wasn't us, right? They tried to create distance.
Standard industry defense. They argued, we don't employ these sewers. We hire a manufacturer, and that manufacturer hires the sewers. If the manufacturer breaks the law, that's not on us.
Which is legally convenient, but ethically dubious when you're the one demanding the shirt be made for $3.
Exactly. The lawsuit led to a 3-year boycott and a documentary called Made in L.A., which was very damaging to their reputation.
Did they change anything after that?
They eventually settled in 2004 and agreed to take steps to ensure their contractors were obeying the law. But the labor issues didn't stop at the factories. The store employees, the ones in the malls, had their own battles.
The bag check lawsuit. This one makes my blood boil a little bit.
It's a classic case of wage theft. In 2012, employees filed a class action lawsuit. Basically, Forever 21 required employees to have their bags checked before they left the store to ensure they weren't stealing merchandise.
Which is, understandable for a retailer.
Sure, but they made them clock out before the bag check. So employees were standing in line for 10, 20, sometimes 30 minutes unpaid, waiting to be allowed to go home.
That is just treating your employees like suspects and stealing their time. If you require me to be there, you have to pay me. It's simple.
The courts generally agree, but it reinforced this image of a company that viewed its workforce as a cost to be minimized rather than an asset.
And it wasn't just wage theft. There were safety issues, too.
On top of that, you had OSHA fines for safety hazards.
Mm.
We're talking blocked exits, boxes piled dangerously high, fines in excess of $100,000 for stores in New Jersey and Manhattan. It paints a picture of a chaotic operational environment where speed and volume took precedence over safety and protocol.
They were just moving too fast. But it wasn't just legal and labor stuff. They had some major PR blunders, too.
Oh, absolutely. They had a real knack for stepping in it.
I remember the allergic to algebra shirt.
The algebra shirt, yes. They sold a shirt that just said allergic to algebra, and it got slammed for being anti-education and, frankly, sexist because it was targeted at young girls.
Not a great look.
Yeah.
And then there was the diet bar incident in 2019.
That was a real head-scratcher. People who ordered plus-size clothing online started receiving free Atkins diet bars in their packages.
You cannot make this up.
The backlash was immediate and intense. People accused them of fat-shaming their own customers. Forever 21 put out a statement calling it an oversight and said the bars were part of a promotion set with all online orders, but the optics were terrible.
It's just so tone-deaf. And didn't they try to sue a blogger who was making fun of them?
Yes. This is my favorite one. A blogger named Rachel Kane started a site called WTForever21.com, where she just poked fun at their more ridiculous items. The company sent her a cease and desist, threatening to sue her.
How did that work out for them?
It backfired spectacularly. It caused a Streisand effect. The media picked up the story, the blog got 1 million times more traffic, and Forever 21 ended up looking like a bully. They eventually backed down.
It seems like a pattern. They were fighting on so many fronts: legal, labor, safety, PR, while trying to maintain this breakneck speed. And eventually, the wheels started to come off.
They really did.
Let's move to the beginning of the end. The first collapse. This is around 2018 and 2019.
To understand this collapse, you have to look at the environment. This was the peak of the so-called retail apocalypse. Malls were suffering. Foot traffic was down. People were shopping on Amazon.
And Forever 21 was all in on malls.
They were particularly vulnerable because of those massive stores we mentioned earlier. The anchor tenant strategy backfired.
So the thing that made them successful was now a weakness.
Spectacularly. Remember, they bought Gadzooks and expanded into 40,000 square foot spaces. When foot traffic drops, a 40,000 square foot store isn't an asset, it's a liability.
You still have to pay the bills.
You still have to pay rent, air conditioning, and staff to cover that massive floor. But the sales per square foot were tanking.
And they started pulling out of international markets, right? I read they left the Netherlands, Thailand, Ireland.
Taiwan, Japan. They were retreating. In 2019, global sales plunged by 32%.
A third of their business in 1 year.
That is a catastrophic drop. If you lose a third of your revenue in a year when you have high fixed costs, you are in serious trouble.
So in September 2019, they filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The first one.
Right. And for listeners who aren't finance nerds, Chapter 11 is reorganization bankruptcy. It's not we're dead. It's we're broke. Please hold off the creditors while we figure this out.
So what reasons did they give? What was the official story?
The reasons cited were overexpansion, stores that were too big, and this is crucial, a lack of a coherent e-commerce strategy.
Which is ironic, considering they were the brand for young people. You'd think they would have pioneered online shopping. Why were they so bad at it?
They were addicted to the physical store. They saw themselves as a brick-and-mortar empire. Their entire model was built around the treasure hunt in the mall. By the time they tried to pivot, Amazon and ASOS were already miles ahead.
They just missed it.
They completely missed the boat.
So the consequence of that first bankruptcy was severe. They ceased operations in 40 countries. They closed 350 of their 815 international stores. They basically retreated to their core markets, the U.S. and Latin America.
It was a massive contraction.
But they didn't die. They were rescued. And this brings us to the zombie phase. Who saved them?
It was a consortium. In February 2020, they were sold for $81 million.
Whoa, stop. $81 million. You just said they had $4.4 billion in sales a few years prior? $81 million is. That pocket change in the corporate world, that's pennies on the dollar.
It was a fire sale. The value had evaporated. The buyers were Simon Property Group, Brookfield Properties, and Authentic Brands Group, or ABG.
Simon and Brookfield. Those are mall owners.
Exactly. And that's the key to understanding this. The landlords bought the tenant.
Why would a landlord buy a failing clothing store? That seems like buying a sinking ship.
Think about it from the landlord's perspective. Simon Property Group owns hundreds of malls. Forever 21 is one of their biggest tenants, occupying huge chunks of square footage. If Forever 21 liquidates and closes all those stores, Simon is left with millions of square feet of empty space that they can't fill. It would devalue the entire mall. So they bought Forever 21, essentially, to pay rent to themselves.
So it's a defensive move. We have to keep the store open or our mall looks dead.
Precisely. It's like a taxi company investing in Uber just to keep the dispatch office open. They formed a joint venture called Sparked Group to manage it.
So the landlord's on the store now. They bring in new CEOs. They try to reinvent the brand. What did that look like? Because I feel like between 2020 and 2024, I saw some very weird headlines involving Forever 21.
It was a struggle for relevance. They were throwing spaghetti at the wall. They brought in Daniel Cooley as CEO, then Winnie Park. They tried partnerships to make the brand feel upscale or cool again.
Right, the collab.
They did a collab with Hervé Leger, which is very high fashion, known for bandage dresses and Sports Illustrated, even Barbie.
And they tried to get into the metaverse. I distinctly remember getting a press release about a Roblox game.
Yes. In late 2021, they hired Virtual Brand Group to create Forever 21 Shop City in Roblox. Players could operate their own Forever 21 stores. It was an attempt to connect with that Gen Z and Gen Alpha audience that they had lost.
Kids aren't coming to the mall, so let's build a mall inside their computer.
It wasn't the worst idea in theory, but while they were playing in the metaverse, their actual technology in the real world was failing. We have to mention the Bolt lawsuit.
Oh, this is the one-click checkout disaster.
A total disaster.
Yeah.
ABG, the new part owner, sued a fintech company called Bolt Financial. Bolt had promised a revolutionary one-click checkout technology for Forever 21's app and website.
And it didn't work.
According to the lawsuit, the rollout was botched. ABG claimed they lost $150 million in online sales because the integration was so buggy.
$150 million lost because the checkout button didn't work. That is a nightmare scenario for any retailer.
ABG called it disastrous.
What?
Bolt denied the claims, of course. But it just shows that even after the rescue, the operational side of the business was struggling to modernize. They couldn't get the basics right.
And then, in August 2023, came the plot twist that nobody saw coming. The enemy entered the building.
The Shein deal.
Shein, the ultra-fast fashion giant, the company that basically looked at Forever 21's business model and said, hold my beer, I can do it faster, cheaper, and without stores.
Shein ate Forever 21's lunch, dinner, and midnight snack.
Wow.
In August 2023, Shein acquired a roughly one-third stake in Spark Group, the operator of Forever 21.
Wow.
It was a bizarre moment. The disruptor Forever 21 was partnering with the new disruptor Shein.
It felt like a surrender. If you can't beat them, let them buy a third of you.
It was an admission that the market had shifted. We had moved from fast fashion, which was mall-based, to ultra-fast fashion, which is direct-to-consumer apps like Shein and Temu.
And Forever 21 was stuck in the middle.
Completely stuck in the middle with expensive leases and slower production cycles, while Shein had no physical stores and used AI to predict trends instantly.
And that middle turned out to be a death trap. Which brings us to 2025, the final nail in the coffin.
The speed of this second collapse was startling. You'd think with Shein and Simon backing them, they'd be safe. But in February 2025, reports surfaced that they were trying to restructure again. They were talking to landlords about cutting rent. But the hole was too deep.
What happened in March?
March 3, 2025. A bloody Monday. They laid off 700 employees in California and Pennsylvania and announced the closure of their Los Angeles headquarters.
The HQ closure is symbolic. That's where it all started. The made in LA dream died right there.
It did. And then, just 2 weeks later, on March 17, 2025, Forever 21 filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy for the second time. But this time was different.
How so?
This wasn't a reorganization. There was no plan to save the stores.
Why not? Why didn't Simon Property Group swoop in to save them again? They did it in 2020.
The math didn't work anymore. Mall traffic had continued to decrease, and the competition from Temu and Shein was just too fierce. The liabilities were listed between $1 billion and $5 billion. The assets were a fraction of that.
So they were truly broke.
They explicitly blamed decreasing mall traffic and competitors like Temu in the filing. Even the landlords realized that keeping these stores open was just burning money.
So immediate liquidation.
Immediate. On the same day they filed, March 17th, liquidation sales began at all U.S. stores. Everything must go. Fixtures, mannequins, hangers. By May 1st, 2025, all U.S. locations were permanently closed.
Just like that. From 400 plus stores in the U.S. to 0 in less than 2 months. That is whiplash.
It is a breathtaking collapse.
And here is the Black Mirror part of the episode. The name didn't die. Section 7, the digital afterlife.
The brand has become what we call a zombie brand. The intellectual property, the name Forever 21, is still owned by Authentic Brands Group.
ABG, the third partner in the rescue.
Right, and ABG's business model is fascinating. They don't make clothes. They own names. They own Elvis Presley, Marilyn Monroe, Reebok, and now Forever 21.
So they just license the name out to whoever wants to pay for it.
Exactly. In September 2025, it was announced that Forever 21 would relaunch as an online-only retailer. But who is running it? It's not the Chang family. It's not Spark. It's a company called Unique Brands.
Unique Brands. That sounds like a shell company in a spy movie.
They also own the digital ghost of the department store Bonton. The operations are sliced and diced. A company called Mark Edwards Apparel runs the women's wholesales. Another company called Kids Concepts oversees children's wear.
So it's a Frankenstein monster, different parts run by different companies, all wearing the skin of Forever 21.
That is a vivid but accurate description. If you go to the website in late 2025, you are buying a shirt made by Mark Edwards Apparel with a Forever 21 tag slapped on it, paying a licensing fee to ABG. The culture, the stores, the infrastructure that the Changs built, that is all gone.
It's just a logo.
It is now purely a marketing vehicle.
It's tragic in a way. I mean, thinking back to that 900 square foot store in Highland Park, the hustle of Do-One Chang pumping gas to save up that $11,000, the sheer scale of what they built. And now it's just a URL owned by a holding company.
It is the life cycle of modern retail, accelerated. Forever 21 revolutionized retail by democratizing fashion. They made trends accessible to everyone, not just the wealthy. They told a generation of girls, you can look like Paris Hilton for $20.
Right.
But they failed to adapt to the digital shift, and they failed to reckon with the ethical and sustainability demands of modern consumers. And ultimately, they were eaten by the very culture of speed they helped create.
That's the irony, isn't it? They were the fast ones. Until someone faster came along.
Exactly.
So if we look at the big picture here, what is the takeaway for you? Because for me, it feels like a warning sign.
I think the provocative question now is about the cycle itself. If Forever 21 was destroyed by Shein and Temu because they were faster and cheaper and more digital,
Mm-hmm.
who destroys Shein and Temu?
That's a scary thought. Is there something faster than ultra fast? Are we going to have clothes 3D printed in our living rooms?
Or does the cycle accelerate to a point where no retailer can survive long term?
Mm-hmm.
Are we moving toward a model of disposable brands just like we have disposable clothing?
Yeah.
Brands that pop up on TikTok, dominate for 18 months, and then vanish into the ether.
That is something to think about the next time you're scrolling through an app and see a $3 shirt.
Indeed. Look at the tag. There is a history there, and usually a clock ticking.
Well, on that cheerful note, thank you for listening to this deep dive into the rise and fall of Forever 21. It's been a journey from the yellow bag to the liquidation sale.
It certainly has.
Check your closets, folks. You might have a collector's item in there. We'll see you on the next deep dive.